Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. And today, I have the pleasure of chatting with my new good friend, Javier Javier, as he's known by. You can find him on Twitter. You can find, actually, if you look below in the description box, there is a link tree, which I suggest everyone does, because it makes my job much easier when I set these up. So, anyways, there's a bunch of links to Patreon, to YouTube, to Twitter, to Instagram, to all the stuff that he's currently on social media. And you can follow him there. That's, mind you, that's if you want to. We don't know yet. We haven't had the conversation. Hey, man, just telling it like it is, brother.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But anyways, Javier, you know what I do here. I talk to people about whatever religious beliefs or beliefs they came out of and how that journey went for them. So I basically ask people to kind of start at the time when they remember being indoctrinated into something and how those dominoes fell that led their way out.
Well, I hope I got an interesting story then.
I'm sure someone will find it interesting, believe me.
Oh, yeah. I believe my indoctrination started maybe when I was, I had to be maybe like 6 or 7 years old. And okay. I grew up in housing projects where everybody basically was living off government housing, food stamps, pretty much. Right. That was the MO. And we had a nice pearly white van that used to pull around the neighborhood and pick up all the kids who wanted to go to church. And yeah, so most kids just went because they wanted to get some food, and the church would give out a lot of food. And I believe I was like the only kid who actually took church seriously. Right. And so they would come pick us up. And at this time, I grew up in an all-black neighborhood, so these were the only non-black people that I ever really saw for the most part. And it was just a group. It was all white church for the most part. And we would get picked up, go to the church, and they would break us up into classes, and they would take us to Bible study, and we would all, be indoctrinated a little bit here and there. They would tell us the story about Noah and the ark. They would tell us about Jesus and the great sacrifice. And then afterwards, we would all go eat, and they would feed us. And the food was fairly good for the most part. But I was the only kid who really, really took church seriously. I was there asking questions to the point where a lot of the other kids would get annoyed because the longer it took us to finish class, we wouldn't be able to eat until we finished. So for some reason, it's in my nature to be very radical, I guess, in anything that I participate in. So early on, around 6 or 7, I got really into religion, and Christianity to be exact. And I would go around the neighborhood trying to, recruit my homeboys into Christianity. Did they season the food?
Total white bread food, right? Like fucking milk toast shit.
I honestly can't remember. I just know that it was different than the food we got in the neighborhood. We ate a lot of hot dogs, a lot of noodles, a lot of, affordable food for somebody who might be living at a low income. And so they had turkey legs, they had ham, mashed potatoes, the whole 9 yards. And but I took religion very seriously to where I was trying to recruit my homeboys to become Christians. And a lot of times people would just push me off, say, I don't want to hear any of that, man. So fast forward a little bit, and I kind of fell off of the whole religion wagon for a while because I got heavily into the streets and started, committing criminal acts and getting into it with the local gangs or whatever the case may be. And kind of religion just fell to the back of my mind. And it wasn't until I got arrested for an armed robbery charge at the age of 15 that religion came back strong. And my mom was very devastated when I got arrested because I had been in trouble with the law a few times here and there.
Sure.
So probation.
Me too, man. In my youth, I was too.
Oh, yeah. I was probation after probation. I got back on probation maybe like a few months after I got off probation the first time. And like 5 days before I got off probation the second time, I was locked up for armed robbery charge. So I'm going through this whole locked up experience. I was locked up for 1.5 years before I even got my time. And the whole time I'm doing that time, that 1.5 years, I'm having these changes back and forth. They had the chaplains that would come into the juvenile and actually teach Bible studies and have conversations with the kids there. They would show us videos about abortion and just
Oh, Jesus.
the whole 9 yards. They were heavy on it. They was laying it thick on us. And I just remember wrestling with myself back and forth, because being locked up, I did a lot of things that I felt like I was necessary in order for me to survive. Some things not so much, but I was just, beating up other kids. I was, involved in a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing. And it always felt to me at the time that when I was doing bad things would happen to me. I would get bad news from my lawyer. He would tell me, hey, it's not looking like we're going to get this bond. You're not going to get out, or they just indicted you. They got enough evidence to convict you. And every time I would, try to change after some bad news would come, it felt like things would get better. So
right.
I started looking into this whole Christianity thing again, and I started taking it seriously. And I remember praying in my cell. It was maybe like 10 days before I was supposed to actually go to court and take a deal for 10 to 20 years in prison. And one night I hit my knees and I just prayed so hard. Like I think this was the last time I ever cried. And I just was telling God, I say, if you can get me out of this, I'll change my life. I'll do better. And I just gave all the promises I could give. And I was 16 at the time. So I wasn't necessarily afraid of doing the time. It was just more so just my mom was really hard on me. She was crying all the time and really devastated that her son was going to be doing 10 to 20 years. My best friends, both of my best friends had already received 10 years, the other one 12 years. We wasn't locked up together. Well, we was locked up together, but we didn't get locked up at the same time for the same charges. And they had already been sent off to prison at the age of 16. They were sent to isolation in prison. So everybody was telling me, oh, you're going to get at least 10 years in prison. So I prayed. And then the next day after I prayed, my mom called me and said, hey, I just got a call from your lawyer. And the lawyer says that the Supreme Court judge, which is like the top judge of all the other judges. So I was already
that would have been Ginsburg at the time, no?
Yeah. Well, this is a local county. Yeah. So we got like juvenile detention courts where they judge juveniles. Right. And if you have adult crimes, you go to Superior Court. Yeah. So I had like the senior judge who was over all the other judges. So everybody knew I was just going to get some heavy time. And he actually decided that he was going to give me a chance to go before him and plead my case that he should give me a lesser charge. Mm-hmm. And so to me at the time, that was God. To me, it was just, it couldn't be anything else. And
he must have intervened somehow, right?
Yeah, to me, it was like you couldn't spell it out to me any other way. Oh yeah, so I went to court, and after I was at court, I had people from the churches that I was going to before I got locked up. I had my mom, my sisters, brothers, everybody was going on the stand trying to testify on my behalf.
Right.
And they were like, he's a good kid, he just made a mistake, and you should give him a lesser sentence, blah, 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 blah. The judge wasn't hearing any of it. The judge was not impressed at all. And then the last person to go on the stand was my father. And my father went up on the stand and he said, I don't blame my son for what he did. I blame myself. And he said that it was, he took ownership. He said, I'm his father. It was my job to make sure my son was home. My son wasn't out in the streets looking to rob somebody. He wasn't out committing criminal acts. I failed as a father, and he shouldn't have to be punished for my failure as a father. And that was basically the summary of what he said. And the judge said, out of everybody that came up here today, you're the only one who said anything that actually hit me in the heart.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and my dad is
a good dad, man. That's a good dad.
Yeah, my dad is a very intellectual type of dude. He's very smart and brilliant. And which is why he hates the fact that I have a YouTube channel talking about politics and religion. But
well, we can't do it at the dinner table, Dad. So
Yeah, I know. And so the judge said, "Okay, I'll make a decision. I'll let y'all know in a few days." So I went back to my cell. A few days passed, and the judge decided that he was going to drop my charges down to the juvenile courts, and I would have to commit to doing 5 years in juvenile detention center, and then I would be released afterwards. So that's what happened. But it didn't take me long to fall back into my old ways after that. Got back into the whole violence, and I had a lot of anger built up, and I took it out on other people. A lot of that going on. And at the same time, I became super religious. So I was trying to square these two things together. I thought that God had chosen me for some big purpose, some reason. The chaplains and the preachers would come into the juvenile detention center and they would build my head up. You're very intellectual. You know how to speak to people. You're going to be a great preacher one day. God has plans for you. So here I am. I'm like the radical Christian fundamentalist. Like I used to read the Bible every night before I went to bed, and I read the Bible 4 times front to back. Right. And at this, and while I was doing this time, I was also studying under the chaplain who was a theologian professor at the university, in the local university. He was teaching me Hebrew, Greek, and all of these things, the translations. He was showing me all that. But that was his undoing, because the more he taught me about religion, the more it was one Bible verse that I took seriously. It was, seek ye the kingdom of God and all these things shall be added unto you. And I thought that if I sought God, that he would reveal himself to me in a way that had never been done. And I wanted to be like Moses. I wanted to be like Paul. I wanted to have this big revelation that God would come down to me and he would just reveal the secrets of the universe.
Visions and stuff, right?
Yeah. And I got real heavy into the Bible, and to the point where I became mentally unstable to a certain degree. I believe I was listening to angels and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
did bushes burst into flames and talk to you or anything like
that? It was more like voices in my head. And
right.
Yeah. So I would get into all of these violent altercations. Like I would go around like the dorms of the juvenile, and I would force guys of other religions to confess to Jesus Christ. Like I would literally tell people they couldn't worship Allah, they couldn't worship the Wiccan religion, or whatever the case they was practicing.
I was Wiccan for a while.
Yeah, I was the guy who was on a crusade. If you had a different religion than me, I was actually going to make you answer for that. And I would get in all these fights, and they sent me off to a mental institution for like 3 years because I was gone. And over time, the more I learned about religion, I started to doubt the faith, and I just started to like lose my faith. And I ended up getting released. At this time, I'm still a Christian, but I'm still trying to believe. And then I got a job at Burger King, and I'm at Burger King. I'm working my job, and then this girl I knew from my past shows up, and she's dressed in a long skirt, like long dresses. She's very modest, and she looked like she's taking good care of herself. So I sit down and I'm trying to holler at this girl. I'm like, yo, what's up? I ain't seen you since, middle school. What's going on? You look good. So she invited me to her church. Little do I know that her church is a cult. So I end up
twice it went off. Damn it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, like, you know what? I'm gonna give God one more chance. I said that because all of this stuff that I'm learning, maybe there's somebody at this church that can help me. I've been asking all the right questions and nobody can give me sufficient answers. So I'm gonna go to this church. I'm gonna see what it's all about. Go to the church. It's very cult-like. The women are all having to wear long dresses. The women have to sit separately from the men. The women are cleaning the pastor's house. The men have to dress in suit and ties everywhere they go. You can't work certain jobs that sell booze, alcohol, cigarettes.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Which became
a fun bunch.
Yeah, definitely. So so that's how I ended up falling out with the pastor, because he was hyping me up. He was like, I knew more about the Bible than he did. And a lot of the church members was coming to me seeking questions and answers, and he was trying to use me as some kind of beacon to like recruit more people and build the church up.
Sure.
And so long story short, I ended up getting a new job at a bowling alley, and the bowling alley sells alcohol.
Uh-oh.
So, dun. So I'm excited. I finally got a job that's like giving me more money than I was making at Burger King. So I'm in school at the time for my business degree. So I'm so excited, and this guy tells me to quit the job. He tells me, you shouldn't work there. You can't work there because they sell alcohol. I'm telling this guy, I'm like, yo, this helping me put food in my pocket. Like, I've been locked up for 5 years. This is helping me, get where I need to go.
John wants to know if you're turning water into alcohol.
I wish I was.
If I could do that, man, holy cow.
Mm.
And everyone's going on about your traffic lights in the background. They're wondering when they're going to turn green.
They
the both, two flashy things?
Oh, yeah. I got them flashing right now. But that's actually the representation for my channel. My emblem is actual traffic lights.
Rental shoes and alcohol, the tools of the devil.
So what ends up happening is I fall out with the pastor. I tell him I'm not quitting my job. I need the money, and it's not going to happen. My father he's been talking to me the whole time I'm going to the church. Like, you need to leave this church behind. I'm hearing things about this church is just not good. You need to run away. And my dad is a Christian. He's a Christian to this day. And so I'm stuck between my dad and this guy, and I'm trying to figure it all out. And this pastor goes in front of the congregation one day and decides that he's going to call me out in front of everybody.
Oh, shit.
And he goes up there, he goes on this long rant about my father getting in the way of what God's work is. And he's telling me I want to be above God and above him. And God sent him to send me this message. He's telling me that he is the vicar of God and Christ. And he's going on this long rant. I get up, I walk outside, and I'm waiting for an altercation when he comes outside, because I'm a grown man. You're not going to get up in front of this whole congregation and call me out and think it ain't going to be consequences. That was the final straw for me. So the girl that invited me to the coat, she came out to calm me down, ended up getting me to leave. And I never went back. But that was the moment I decided, you know what? I need to figure out for myself, is God real or not? So I started doing my research. I come across all these debates about Christianity versus atheism. I'm like, what is atheism?
Had you really not heard of it before that? No.
In my mind, everybody had a religion. In my mind.
Okay. Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, I grew up in a neighborhood that was like, even people who didn't live right still believed in God. And they never went to church, maybe on Easter Sunday or something like that, but they still claim to believe in God. So I just, in my mind, I never thought that anybody could be walking the face of the earth and not believe in something. So
there we go.
Thank you, Julie. So here I am. I'm like, okay, there are people out there like me. There are people out there who are actually questioning religion and figuring out that, hey, maybe this stuff don't make any sense. And so I just fall deep into the rabbit hole. Like I say, I'm a fundamentalist at heart. I'm a radical. So I go,
hold it. So you believed like that the earth was only like 6,000 to 10,000 years old, in that range and all that stuff? Or
no, the funny thing is I never actually came across people who said anything like that. It was never the science part of it that got me. It was more like the Bible says you're supposed to live a certain way. This is how we live it. And Christ died, he rose 3 days later. That's the truth. It was never like, I never got into that whole where religious people were trying to use science as a way to justify the Bible. All of that was fairly new. Even the Christian apologist was fairly new to me. I didn't know there were people out there professionally who argued for Christianity. So I come across the Four Horsemen. I come across Sam Harris. I come across Christopher Hitchens. I come across all the big names in the atheist movement. And I'm listening to these debates, and I'm just eating them up. And the atheists are winning.
Well, in some people's minds, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so in my mind, it's like I've been asking all of these same questions that the atheists up there were asking. I was thinking of song, and here are people actually on a world stage arguing these things, and in my mind, it's on my behalf. It's like, yes, we need questions. We got questions. We need answers. So I became an anti-theist. Like I took more towards Christopher Hitchens. To me, Christopher Hitchens was my prophet. He was the guy who was saying all the things that I wanted to say in the way that I couldn't say it. And I just, I picked up my cross and I started to bear it. I started going to churches. I started calling out pastors in front of the congregation, asking them to debate me. Yeah, I went the full length. I was going out debating guys on the street preachers, different religions like the Hebrew Israelites. I was debating these guys everywhere I could find them. And I made it my mission to go to find a new church every week so I could debate the pastor. And
Woohoo!
it didn't work out too well because I ended up getting banned at the church after church after church. People
I
were
wonder
banning
why.
Yeah, so I just started building up this great debate these great debate skills, just going out debating pastors after pastor after pastor. And I started debating Muslims, I started debating Jews, and before you knew it, I was becoming fairly well known in my area as being the guy who debates. And
Nice.
people kept telling me, you should start a YouTube channel, you should start a YouTube channel, you should start a YouTube channel, you should start a podcast. And in my mind, I didn't know anything about this. I could barely use Facebook at the time. You know, so
you want me to do YouTube? What's wrong with you people?
Exactly. So yeah, I missed the whole technological advancement because I got locked up in 2008. So that was like this was before Obama got elected.
That's like the dawn of Facebook. Well, 2006, 2007, I guess.
Yeah, the most I knew was about MySpace. MySpace was what everybody talking about.
Oh Lord! I think I still have a MySpace page for the band, like way back in the day. It's probably still kicking around there.
Awesome. I should check that out.
No, it's shit. It's old. It's outdated.
Yeah.
Nobody goes there anymore.
Oh man, poor MySpace. It used to be jumping, but
yeah,
I didn't know anything about podcasts or anything like that. And before I knew it, I was meeting atheists like in random places. People were like, "Hey, you that guy? You're that guy that was debating that pastor one time, and I saw you and I videotaped you and stuff like that." And,
oh no way! Awesome.
Yeah, and people were coming up to me just randomly in the mall and places like, "Hey, you're that guy," and
you're that guy.
Yeah, so I started meeting atheists for the first time in my life, like other atheists in person, and I was like, "Yo, this is cool." We exchanging numbers and stuff, and that's how the whole politics came about. Because I wasn't into politics at all. Atheism led me into politics because I believe like there's a fairly a good amount of atheists who are political in some sense because of the whole. Yeah, so that's how I got pulled into politics.
The part of atheism, I think, that brings people to the political side is when they decide that they're humanists as well, right? So they're looking out for people. And that has a lot to do, or there's politics involved with that for sure. Yeah. Like the treatment of the LGBTQIA plus community, treatment of other, what's the word I'm looking for? Not minimize, what's the word?
The minorities?
No, not so much. Minorities too, but they're all part of. What's the word I'm looking for?
Marginalized.
That's the word I'm looking for. Marginalized groups.
Thank you, Mikey.
Thanks, Mikey. Yeah, Mikey doing that in the private chat there. Oh yeah, that's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. So
Prophet Todd, Maya. That's exactly right. Exactly. Marginalized groups. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
so, and I think humanism brings you to the defense of these kinds of groups, I think.
Yeah, and also the fact that there are a lot of religious people who try to bring their religion into the political realm and use it to actually oppress or keep people down. So
systemic racism is very real.
We would probably disagree on that, but let's finish the story. And so a lot of atheists that I became friends with and started talking to on a regular basis, they were trying to pull me into their political movements and stuff of that sort. So I was like, okay, I don't know anything about politics. I'm gonna look into these issues and I'm gonna decide for myself what exactly is going on here. And I dove deep. Like I said, I'm a radical. So I started looking deep into politics. I started studying about guns, the First Amendment, the Constitution, everything dealing with politics, political figures, history. I started reading into all of it and came out the other end a conservative. And that's how you got a black conservative atheist sitting in front of you right now. And it took people by shock. It took people by...
I'll admit, Javier, when you told me first time I met you that you were conservative, I was a little bit not shocked, because I guess just surprised is more like it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are. Even a lot of conservatives, because, Christianity is very heavy on the conservative side. And they say, well, you can't be conservative and be atheist. And I hear that from time to time. Yeah.
There are many out there.
Yeah. So I just started a YouTube channel and I started talking about politics, religion, and culture. And I decided I'm going to debate people on the merits of every argument. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you fall on. We're going to put an issue up there and we're going to actually discuss the merits of it. And if your argument holds up, then more power to you. So I have disagreements with other conservatives. I have disagreements with liberals. I have disagreements with Christians, Muslims, Jews. It's all about the conversation with me. And that's kind of my whole bag. I care about the truth. And I felt like for a long time, I've been lied to my whole life growing up. People were telling me, just believe something just have faith. And a lot of pastors would tell me that growing up when I had questions, just have faith. You got to stop asking so many questions. Lean out on your own understanding, trust in the kingdom of God, things of that sort. And I just decided no more. I'm just going to look at every issue based on its own merits. So I talk all things philosophy. I'm big into just seeking the truth wherever I can find it. And that's how I came up with the Javier Javier show.
Somebody in the chat wanted to know if you were pro-Trump.
I was pro-Trump in 2016. I became very anti-Trump later on, mainly around the time of the second election.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was very pro-Trump, and it wasn't a very conventional way why I supported Trump. This was me when I first got into politics. And to me, Donald Trump was and I think we might disagree on this, and you let me know, Neil 604 Atheist. As I was looking into the issues about politics and I came across political correctness, I thought it was a big mistake. I thought political correctness was something that was a danger to everyone. I remember not being able to speak up and say things, even if I was wrong. I remember not being able to ask questions, even if sometimes the questions might have been a little dangerous. But I believe in freedom of speech, and I believe that people shouldn't police what they say, because that's the only way to be corrected if people know what you're thinking. And that was one of the hot issues of me. And Donald Trump was somebody who said whatever he wanted to say, regardless of what the consequences would be. And that was one thing that sparked my interest in Trump at the very beginning. The fact that here was somebody who was unwilling to let anybody tell him what he can and cannot say. If he's wrong, he's wrong. And we can debate that. But people have to know what you're thinking. I don't want closet racists. I want people who are out and bold with their racism, so I know to avoid them. I want people that can express that they don't like gay people, so we know to avoid them. So we know to boycott their companies and not to give them our money. And when you force people into these closets, all they do is fester and they become angry and bitter. And next thing you know, you got some guy going out shooting up a hair salon or something like that. I believe we need to know what people are thinking. And that was one of the things that sparked me about Trump. And then there were a few other things that I liked about Trump that really allowed me to support him. But I don't know if you want to go into the whole.
Well, I think Maya just took the words right out of my mouth with this last statement. Whoop, hang on here. This last statement here. Political correctness isn't staying mute on a subject. It is about asking questions, educating yourself, and not making asinine statements out of ignorance, which I completely agree with.
Yeah, I agree. But
you have to remember something. I'm all for free speech, right? But when free speech starts to fringe onto things like hatred and promoting hatred, you are responsible for everything you say. Bottom line. So if you say something that could be considered something horrifying, then you must expect some pushback and some other people to jump on you for that kind of a statement. So your rights to pretty much end at my nose if you're throwing a punch, right? That kind of thing. So I'm all for free speech. That doesn't make somebody, a bad person if they're for free speech. I believe you have the right to say anything that you want, as long as it's within the realm of something reasonable. Like, we're not trying to promote hatred here. We're not trying to promote sexism or racism or marginalized people. We're not trying to do that. But we do want speech. If you're ignorant on some of these subjects, feel free to ask questions, but you have to remember that you are responsible for everything you say, and your everything you say will have consequences.
I'm 100% behind you on that. I believe everything should have consequences. My dad used to tell me growing up, he said, if you go out there and you commit crimes, I want you locked up, because I don't want you out here victimizing people. You need consequences. I'm 100% behind people having consequences for the things they say out of their mouth. I think the thing that bothered me the most is when I was meeting people in the real world, people were afraid to ask me simple questions. People were afraid to say the most basic thing because they thought that I would be angry at them for asking a question to a black man about something. People were afraid to, people would assume that I had certain experiences because I was black. And therefore they would just, instead of asking me, they were afraid to. They just made the assumption. And I started meeting so many people who were censoring themselves out of fear that they would say the wrong thing.
Because they didn't want to disrespect you or something, I gather.
Yeah, and I'm not that type of person. I'm the type of person is, if you have a question, ask the question. But
sure.
I meet a lot of atheists a lot of times who agree with me fundamentally that you should be able to go into a church and you should be able to ask questions about God and Christ. You're going to cause harm to people in that church because people really believe in that stuff.
Sure,
people put a lot of stock and a lot of heart into the things that the Bible teach them. You can cause people harm by criticizing their religion, but I have to be able to ask those questions. And
I don't know if I would say you would cause them harm. You can upset them, hurt their feelings, that kind of thing. But, and sometimes that can leave a lasting impression or lasting mental state, if you will.
Yeah, because my mom, for example, she's a believer in God. And the fact that I became an atheist, it bothers her to an extreme level, to where the point where she could not really function talking to me at certain times. And it became very toxic in our relationship. And I realized that I was doing her harm. She would stay up nights worrying about whether I was going to hell or not. And it was taking a mental toll on her health and, things of that sort. It wasn't until after years and years of having these conversations and coming to an understanding that she was able to actually accept it and still see me as a good person. And it's not her fault. That's all she was taught her whole life. And especially when I came out very radical with my atheism, I didn't really care what I said to people, and I would just go off the fly because I felt like religion had done so much harm to the world. It was our turn. It was our turn to speak up, and they just had to shut up and listen. And I took the wrong approach on that early on, but there are people out there who they don't know how to accept atheism. They don't know how to deal with the fact that people question their religion. There are people of different faiths who will kill because you decide to question their religion and their faith.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So it's that serious to some people, not all people. And I know I'm talking about a small minority group within these religions, but I had white friends, people who were white, who felt like they couldn't talk to me about certain things because they were afraid that they would go viral or that I would put them out on blast and it would become a big issue. Right. And I felt like, okay, there are good-hearted people within the atheist movement, within liberal movements, who have great ideas, and it's just not guaranteed that it will spread throughout society the way that they intend it to. And I think that sometimes we have to be cautious on what we promote because it can have negative consequences. And a lot of times people don't want to acknowledge those negative consequences. So I'm not your average conservative. I don't think that what you see on television is conservatism. This whole movement behind Donald Trump, where all the conservatives not all the conservatives, but a large portion of conservatives decided that they were going to just follow Donald Trump wherever he went. I'm not that guy. I believe in the principles of conservatism. I believe in the fundamental value of human nature. I believe in the family structure. I believe in small government. Now, we can have a debate whether how small the government should be, how big the government should be. But I'm not the conservative that just went all radical with Donald Trump and became this whole right-winger. And a lot of times people hear conservative, they automatically assume a whole variety of things that follow that title.
Yeah. We do that. We all do that, really. When we hear certain things, we have this preconceived idea of what it is.
Yeah, and that's what part of my show is about, debunking some of those notions. And I mean, like most of the people that I'm friends with, I'm married to a liberal. My wife voted for Bernie Sanders. Okay. I have no problem with people on the left side of the fence. Like, I enjoy the conversation. I love the debate. I love to have good arguments and conversations. So a lot of people that I talk to are on the left, and I don't have a problem with it. It's the hijacking of the people on the far extreme lefts and rights that is allowing everybody in the middle not to trust the other person when they say conservative or liberal.
you're going to get extremists in every group, in every faction of people. There's going to be extremists.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do with my show, is to show people that we can have this conversation and we can agree on some things, we can disagree on some things, but at the same time, I'm gonna laugh, I'm gonna have a good time, and we're gonna have a great conversation, and we're gonna sometimes get serious, but at the same time, I'm a conservative and I'm an atheist as well. And I want people to know that it's okay to be different. It's okay to have different ideas on tax policy. It's okay, but also don't go out and intentionally hurt people. Don't go out and be a douchebag, you know?
Yeah, I'm 100% behind that. Don't go out and be a dick.
Yeah.
Try and be a decent example of a human being to everyone, right?
Definitely.
Maybe that'll spread, right?
Yeah, so I'm less radical with my atheism as I once was. I was an anti-theist through and through. I still think religion itself is nonsense. I think that it is it's harmful to a certain degree. A lot of people say, well, if I'm not hurting anybody, why should you care? And I simply bring up the part where you never know who you're actually hurting. That guy who taught me about religion when I was 7 years old didn't know that I was going to become a radical and turn out and start beating up Wiccans. He didn't know that. But, you know, so I really believe that we have to be vigilant in what we tolerate to a certain degree, because your ideas need to be challenged. I got 100 ideas, and I think all 100 of them should be challenged on some basic level. And that's what atheism was about. That's what atheism was. It was liberating to me because I got to ask the questions. You know,
P said it right there. Atheists really only agree on one thing: questions of gods. Everything else is optional.
Yes, beautiful. And that's the way I like it to be. And I never was a part of the whole atheist movement. Like, I missed the whole atheist movement when atheism really took off. Like, when I started watching the Four Horsemen, these were old videos. These were like 7, 8 years old. So I missed the whole movement. I think maybe a few years after I got out, Christopher Hitchens had died. So I missed all of that. And then I meet atheists who are divided now on so many different subjects. And I'm like, I don't really know what to make of that, because I never was a part of an atheist group, you know, or a movement to be exact. So I would love to know your feedback on that. What exactly is going on with the whole atheist movement? Is there a division going on between atheists for the most part, or?
There's always going to be shit stirrers, right? There's always going to be. We've a few of my friends that I'm connected with very well know. Like a couple of years back, when in during Faithless Forum, there was a big whole thing that blew up there, and now there's people running around saying that the atheist community is toxic, which I agree there are toxic elements, but the whole community as a whole, you can't say is toxic. Like, people like to throw blanket statements around, and that really pisses me off. I've actually left a few groups because of statements for that. Like, because there's no real, you're not really talking about it. You're just making these statements and you know, like pointing the finger at the entire group when not everyone in the group is the way you're saying. So yeah, there's always going to be shit stirs. But you know, one thing I always often like to remind people is if you're going to stir the shit pot, you often have to lick the spoon. So
I like that.
There's always going to be people in every demographic. You're going to have people.
Yeah, definitely. I've talked to some big atheists over since I started my show. Talked to David Smalley. I talked to David Silverman.
Yikes.
Yeah, me and David Silverman had a couple conversations on my show. I think he's he's not really into this woke, I guess, mentality coming from the left, I guess, on how people phrase that term. But
I've seen it used in multiple types of people. So
so there's definitely a lot of people who bear the name atheist, and they disagree on a wide variety of issues. And I was actually surprised that there was an atheist movement. I would figure that I get that you need to mobilize and fight certain organizations or movements like Christianity who are trying to like put 10 commandments up in front of a state building or something like that. Like I 100% agree with that. And I tell religious people all the time, keep your religion out of your politics. I don't think religion and politics go together. But I also see an error being made on the far left where people are making their politics their religion. And I don't say that lightly. I know a lot of people will jump on me and say that's not what's happening. I don't take that lightly, but I see a lot of dogmatic approaches towards politics these days. Mm-hmm. There are a large portion of people who are not flexible enough to have conversations about anything. It's like the moment you decide that you disagree with them or something, they automatically call you a bigot, or they call you a racist or a homophobe. And sometimes to me, it's like, that's no way to have an argument. At least hear out what the person is saying and figure out for yourself. And I'm a black guy. I'm under no illusion that I'm black, right? And I don't think I fall in the category of a Candace Owens or I was a Tatum or somebody of that stature, which is probably why my YouTube channel isn't as big as theirs. But I'm under no illusion that racism exists.
Yeah, well, it sure does.
Yeah, I disagree with people on to what extent racism is a problem in America and how much energy we should be putting towards it. And that's where we have the conversation at. I agree. If anybody tries to act like racism doesn't affect black people in America, they're mistaken. And we can't start at that point. But as soon as I tell some people on the other side of the aisle that I don't agree to what extent that you think racism plays a role in the average black person's life, I instantly get caught, oh, you're Uncle Tom or you're a coon, and without even hearing my argument in the first place. And I just think that I feel the same way sometimes that I felt when I was trying to fight off the religious indoctrination, where people just, the moment you decide to question anything, you're instantly shouted down and say, hey, trust, have faith that I'm right. And don't ask any questions. And I don't like being told not to ask questions. And
nobody likes to be told that.
Yeah. So, so I'm in a weird spot because I'm a conservative, but I'm also an atheist. So
I think there's definitely going to be some interesting conversation in the after party. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. I look forward to it because I don't know how long your show usually runs, but I can talk.
After parties don't really have a cap, but
yeah,
I generally like to keep it around a couple hours, somewhere around there.
Cool. Yeah, so I think that
especially being on blood thinners right now, as I'm on blood thinners right now, so my energy levels aren't what they normally are.
Yeah. I try to hang with you as much as possible.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. You can hang here right till the end. That's fine.
Yeah. So I'm like in this weird spot right now where, like, because I'm a conservative and I'm also an atheist, I'm usually pissing off a lot of conservatives and I'm usually pissing off a lot of atheists. So, but I don't do my show I don't do it for money. I don't do it for likes. And I do it because I'm really trying to have real conversations. This country, the world, there's so many issues that we need to be talking about and figuring out. And a lot of times we can't because we can't have the conversation. So I just hope that I can reach across the aisle to anybody who's willing to have a conversation. And if they think I'm stupid at the end of the day, that's fine. But I hope that I made you think at least once. I hope that I questioned something that you had in your mind that made you stop and say, he made a good point. So I have liberals, I have conservatives, I have atheists, I have religious people who all watch my show. And they have conversations within the comments. And I welcome anybody, just come on over and join the conversation. And if I say something to piss you off, just understand that, hey, you pissed off a lot of religious people in your day. And they just got to suck it up and deal with it. And we're going to learn and grow together. I done ran out of.
Well, that's all right, because we got about 15 minutes left. So I'd like to bring Mikey in. I usually like to bring him in around the last quarter hour. Quarter of the hour, and see if he's got any questions he'd like to ask as well.
So I heard everything about the politics and the You in Atlanta, right?
Savannah,
Georgia. Yeah.
You in Georgia, though, right?
Yeah.
you ain't bring up the strip clubs not once. You got to talk about the if we going to be from Georgia, you got to talk about strip. Neil, do you know about strip clubs in Georgia?
You're going to be disappointed.
Yes, I do. Yes.
You're going to be disappointed. I've never been to a strip club.
What? Like never?
Never.
I haven't been since I was probably in my early 20s, but still.
I've never had a desire to go. I'm not interested. I'm not excited by sweaty booties and dollar bills. It's not my thing.
And every time I've been to the strip club, I've been forced to go. I never got in my car and drove to the strip club. I'd just be out with
forced to go.
Yeah, I would be out with people, and then like, all right, cool, we're going to the strip club now. So I was like, you can't drop me. No, we ain't dropping you off. And I had to go. I had to go. I did not have a choice.
I guess the thing is not to have too many friends. I keep like one friend at a time. So I've never been to a strip club, and I probably will never ever step in one. And I'm polyamorous. I actually have I believe in multiple partners, but I've never been to a strip club. It doesn't excite me.
I'm just going to address something real quick before we carry on the strip club conversation here.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked me why I was on blood thinners, and I told them I have deep vein thrombosis, which is a huge blood clot inside me. They needed ultrasound to find it and stuff like that. And that's why I'm on the blood thinners now, because my leg got all swollen on the left side, better than the right side, trust me.
Is it getting better?
The swelling is starting to go down. It's still swollen quite a bit. I have to actually go out and buy some compression socks now so that the kind of heat helps with that. And
I'll ask my
Christian
subscribers to pray for you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Gotcha.
But so that's why I'm on the blood thinners, and that's why I'm not drinking. I mean, I'll probably have a beer like I did last time in the after party, but right now it's about all I can have.
The only reason I bring up Georgia strip clubs is because, from what I understand, they are legendary. And there are strip clubs, and then there's hot Atlanta.
I've dated strippers. I've dated 2 strippers, actually.
Oh, wow.
Just one for me.
Your confidence is on a new level.
You definitely got to be secure with yourself.
Definitely.
Well, you can't be petty and worried about shit.
The latest one that I dated was she was an ex stripper at the time. Her name's Mickey, and she ran strippers for cancer, and all the strippers would get together and raise money for cancer, stuff like that. So that was pretty cool, I thought.
Nice. Yeah.
See, just a benevolent group of entertainers. That's all that is. And
man, if I could make that kind of cash taking my clothes off for people, I'd do it too. But nobody wants to fucking see me naked right now. No, trust.
That's our problem. Is that we're ugly.
That's right. It's like, buddy, I'd rather watch a couple of pigs poop wrestle or something.
Paint dry. One thing, and I'm not going to go too much into the political stuff because I have a whole podcast about it, and we'll talk there someday.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. I think Javier would get on there.
He'll have fun with us. Political correctness, I think it's a wobbly term, right? Because it means one thing.
No.
Look, the people want it, Neil. Are you going to deny the people what they want?
Hey, just think about it like this. Only your fans will be watching. So, I mean.
Right.
My neighbor's whole fans like, take your bandana off, Neil. No, you're gonna go to my OnlyFans for that one.
Yeah, there you go. It'll just be a whole repeat of the show, but then it'll just be like a filter that takes the bandana off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's getting dirty.
I could do it. But
Whoa. They didn't pay.
I've done it live a few times already. People always wonder if he's like going bald and he's just trying to hide it. He's got like one of them skullets. Right?
Or you're a biker dude.
or a biker dude. I haven't actually owned a bike since the early 90s, so yeah, I should probably remedy that. Yeah. At least Aaron Raw's trying to get me to remedy that. So he's like, you should get a bike.
Neil, have you heard of the band Nile?
I've heard of them. I have not heard anything by them.
They are brutal as fuck. They're amazing. Saw them at Ozfest one year. You want to talk about a fucking skullet. Dude's hair was just like yours, and that bandana came off, and it was just shining and gleaming. I was like, oh, you has no hairs under that.
It's like the janitor from Hogwarts, right? Or
it was only, he only had hair where the bandana was not. And I was like, damn.
Wow.
That's a skullet.
That is a skullet. But on the political correct thing, so I always use the 3 rule. And I have to ask myself 3 questions before I say anything concerning anybody else. Does it have to be said? Does it have to be said by me? And does it have to be said right now? And that's just a courtesy that I try to afford everybody else in my communication. So I've never had a problem with political correctness. Like, I mean, on occasion, like I've misgendered somebody, but then I immediately apologize and they say, no, it's cool. It happens. And then we just move on. And then, but if does it have to be said? Does it have to be said by me? Does it have to be said right now? And no worries. Everybody's cool. Everybody can still communicate and have everything that they're tons. Do you agree with that?
My fucking hero. That's all I can say.
He's the best. He's just the best.
Do I agree with that? I don't think I can, because I believe that you should. I think if you're the guy there, say what you got to say. I mean, I ask myself, how many people were standing around Hitler when Hitler was rising to power, and people were just like, oh, somebody else will say it. Somebody else will say something. And it got to the point where nobody felt like they could say something, because maybe everybody in the room was thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to be that first person to say something.
Well, that's a highly nuanced situation, isn't it? Because you have to talk about World War I and what happened in Germany and paying reparations for losing a war, and how Germans were shit on for decades. So
World War II, the Nazis.
Before World War II, which is what the fallout from World War I is what, and the bankruptcy of Germany is what led to Hitler being able to take power in the first place. It's because everyone was tired of getting shit on, and then here's this guy saying, "We're the best. We're gonna do everything." Yeah, so that's where that comes into play. So I don't know if that would like they all wanted him to succeed, as opposed to like if Neil has a booger in his nose,
like the emperor with no clothes. Like,
I think it needs to be said. Okay, we're live, so it probably needs to be said right now. And it's just me and him. Let me tell him. So if I check all 3 boxes, then yes, I'll say it. But if it doesn't, if it only checks 1 or if it only checks 2, I just let it go. You know what I'm saying? So if it's, I run it through that filter first, not so that I can be controlled by other people, but just so that all of the communication that I have with people is effective and functional and meaningful, and actually give a shit about what I'm saying. Because I could just talk all damn day. Yeah, but then it waters down like my message.
That's a good point right here. By the way.
Yeah, maybe we need to get an actual definition of PC, not saying something to a guy who's literally gassing people to death in self-preservation. I think that when it comes to political correctness, I would define it as living in a culture where there's a taboo against breaching certain topics or saying certain words or sentences you feel like there's a social pressure on you not to say certain things. I think that's what political correctness is, especially when it's something that is being given to you, especially by politicians and people in positions of power who actually regurgitate some of those same talking points. I think that is political correctness, at least how I would define it. It doesn't have to be a power dynamic. It just has to be a social pressure where people are afraid to say certain things.
So racial slurs are good?
In certain contexts, yes.
Not benign or neutral, good?
In certain contexts. I would never speak in absolutes. I don't believe it's an objective thing. It's a very relative. So in certain situations, like me and my family, we're having a conversation and I use the N-word towards my brother or something, that is not seen as a way of being like a racial slur. It's actually a different context around it. Certain comedians use certain words. Like there are Black comedians who use racial slurs to make jokes that people actually laugh at. I don't think you should ever just say one word is completely banned for all time in any context. I don't see the world as being that simplistic.
But that's like saying like there's a good time to say mean and hateful things.
No, I don't think so, because I hear women who are cool with other women call each other the B word, and they're completely fine in that context, using it towards each other, and nobody has a problem with it. It's completely seen as a very mutual, loving, respect thing amongst them, and they use it as a.
That's taking back a word like that and using it for something different, though. I think that falls under a different category.
I mean, if you're talking about as a person using it as a racial slur towards another person, are you saying in that context? Are you saying is that word itself should never be used?
I'm just saying I can't think of like the K word for Jews. I can't think of a context where that would ever be a good word. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's millions of words. I gotta say this: the funniest version I've ever heard of that word in particular was on Porky's. When the guy kept calling him a kite. I'm going to go fly a kite. It's like the word's kike, you know, like that kind of thing, right? Which I thought was just too funny. I mean, and I was a Jew at one time, so outside of a couple of select jokes, there isn't a lot of function for that.
No,
other
if
than
you're using it
to be hateful or hurtful, right?
If you're using it with the intent to be hateful, that's another story altogether.
Right. So the context is super important. So that's why I was trying to like get at it with you. It's like, can you think of a way to get my dog to shut up? And also, it's called a kick. But there's a lot of things that yes, they are free speech, but I can't fathom any kind of situation where it's beneficial or helpful or useful or, you know what I'm saying? Or if it clarifies anything. Like, I can't think of any way that it's positive for any sort of communication. It's used only as a way of chopping things down and tearing things down, as opposed to not even like objectively looking at them. It's just a slur. It's just a mean. It's a mean word. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, it depends on your intent with the word you're using, I suppose.
Yeah, that's why I say it depends on the context. If somebody is using a word to denigrate somebody or to be like discriminatory against, I would 100% agree with you. At all. Yeah. But also at the same time, if a person wants to say that, say it.
Right.
And have to deal with the consequences too.
Yeah, right. You have to deal with the consequences.
But that's exactly it, and you fell right into my trap card that I laid face down. So if you want people to have consequences for their words, and there is a general idea of what the consequences are for those words, you call that political correctness. But you already said that you like when there's consequences.
Yeah, look, I'm down for consequences. What I'm saying is
right.
What I'm saying is, I said it on many podcasts before, and I said it on mine as well. I will actually not try to seek out a friendship with a white guy who's afraid to use the N-word. And the reason I will not is because I don't want you to not call me the N-word because you're afraid of me. I want you to not call me the N-word because that's not what you want to do. If there's a difference between somebody not saying something because they're afraid versus not wanting to say something. And
you started one way and then you went a different way. Like you said, I wouldn't be friends with a white guy who was afraid to call me the N-word or who wouldn't call me. Like I thought you said wouldn't call you that.
I would not seek a friendship with somebody who would be afraid to call me the N-word. If
I'm not trying to be a friend anyway. Like if that's what it comes to.
As a white guy,
yes, white man.
I'll say this: it's not a thing of fear; it's a thing of respect.
Yeah, but it has to be the respect. Me. Yeah, but there are people out there who want to say it, but they don't do it out of fear, and those are the people I'm most concerned about. I'm not afraid of the guy who's not a racist. I'm afraid of the guy who's a racist and in the closet about it, because those are the people who will go behind your back and do something racist towards you, and you won't even know about it. I want to know what you think about me. I want to know how you feel. Give me the heads up, brother. That's what I want.
I can smell it on him. It's almost like a garlicky, funky smell. Like if you just sweat it out some onion.
Funky smell? Like what?
It's like if you sweat some onions. I smell racism in here. Like I can just sense it as soon as I walk into a room. Someone in here has had racism for lunch. I can tell.
But like if a white person called me an N-word and they did it intentionally to be racist toward me, there would be no consequences. I don't feel the need to be the angry guy who goes after a white person for calling me the N-word. For one, I'm not in control of what somebody else says or does. I'm in control of my response to it. And a lot of times there are people out there who feel like they want to use violence as a way to solve a problem, when you beating up some guy because he used the N-word isn't going to make him less racist. It's probably just going to make him more racist, and he's going to go and rant to his other racist friends, and they're going to get even more pissed off. And you're just making the problem worse. And in a way, you have to learn being right doesn't always mean being effective. And I'm more concerned about being effective than being always right. Sometimes you're justified to punch somebody in the face, but should you? That's the question, and that's the distinction between the two.
Does it have to be done by me? Does it have to be done right now? Does it have to be done? Sometimes people check all three boxes.
But your logic is not everybody's logic. What those three questions you asked might be totally different than somebody else's. So,
guys, what do you say? We wrap this up and actually talk about this in the after party, because I know that there's folks in the chat that want to get in on the conversation.
They're itching
for sure. And nice. I think this is an important conversation to have too.
Yep, definitely.
Right? I mean,
I'm here.
This is how we hammer out our social issues and stuff like that. We get together and we talk about it. Right?
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
think it's good that we do that. And I think it's one of the things I think is fantastic is that we're all level-headed about it and no one's losing their shit and throwing stuff around. Well, at least I haven't yet. But
wait till I flip this desk.
Yeah, wait till I fucking rage quit right now. But
I don't have to say.
No, he did that himself.
Can I tell people where to find me?
Sure. I do have a link right below your link tree, which has all your links. But yeah, you can mention all the places that folks can find you for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I gotta say it. Please come check me out at the Javier Show. That's Javier. Spell it twice. Really love to have y'all over there. And these are the kind of conversations that I have over there. Yeah, just like that. And this is the conversation that I like to have over there. So please come check me out and join the conversation. Join the Hobby Lobby today.
Javier Lobby?
Javier Lobby? No, I am rage quitting now.
You gotta admit, that was kind of funny. That was kind of funny.
Damn, that's good.
Oh, no shit.
Gotta catch on.
Damn.
Well, Javier, I'm sure we probably, knowing that you're conservative, I mean, there's even a smidge of conservatism in me probably somewhere because I grew up that way, right? But for the most part, I'm pretty much a flaming liberal. Like I believe, in classical liberal type stuff because there's a lot of newer liberal things that are quite out there.
I love you. I love the classical liberals. I love y'all.
Right?
Y'all the future.
Yeah, well, really, ultimately for me, it just boils down to something that I actually learned in Wicca, and you harm none, do as you will.
I agree.
That's it. That's pretty much it. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you though for joining me today and being my guest today. It was great to chat with you, man.
Always, thank you. I'm welcome me on anytime, brother. You can come on my show anytime, and both of you.
Well,
always welcome.
Right. You're always welcome to jump into after parties if you like. If you see me running them and stuff like that.
He said anytime, so I'm his new co-host. I will be on every show in the Hobby Lobby.
I don't know if Neil gonna want to give you up like that.
Oh no, he's contractually obliged to be here.
Yeah,
words
have consequences, Hobby. Words have consequences. You said anytime. And I took that as every time.
That's a good point. Good comeback.
No, Zod. That's not classic liberalism. At least, fuck. I hope not, because if that's the case, then I have to change my mind about something. Fuck Prager, you. That's all. Anyway. So as at the end of all these shows, I like to do a little shout outs to some stuff that I'm involved with, and the first one that you saw there was Randolf Richardson, who's in the chat right now. Is the president of Canadian Atheists, and I'm the community advocate for the same organization. And we're going to be starting up our own show soon enough. Don't really know when. We're still building the thing, so it's called True North Talk. You can head over to www.truenorthtalk.ca to get all the links there, which will also link you to the channel and also to the Canadian Atheists if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Also, I'm one of the newer hosts, and there are many great, fantastic, awesome new hosts for the revamped and relaunched Nonprofits, which is a product of the ACA, and it airs at Sundays at 3 p.m. between Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience. So if you're unfamiliar with it, head over to that channel, the Nonprofits, and give them a sub, and you'll see my ugly mug there, and then you'll see Mikey there from time to time, and lots of other fantastic co-hosts that we've got together to produce that show now. Also, last Saturday of every month, myself and Andy, who has a channel called Laughing in Disbelief, he's an atheist comedian, and Seamus from the Free Thought Prophets channel get together and do a little something called Atheist Drinking Out Loud. We generally have a guest that comes on with us every time we run the show. So the last one was Bionic Dance. You never know when I might come knocking on your DMs and say, hey, you want to join us for an episode? No, you don't actually have to drink. And of course, I won't be for the next little while because of the blood thinners. But it's a lot of fun. And Mikey can vouch for that. He's been on.
Yeah. And then we did your show right after. That was a long day of drinking.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
I drank from noon to midnight.
Yes,
like a college kid.
I'm about to get me another beer.
Yeah, I remember those days. Anyway, but yeah, that's it for today, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are awesome. You guys really are the reason why I'm able to keep doing this. You guys keep me able to do this more. Just shut up, Neil, and end the damn show. Anyways, guys, we're going to do the after party. If you're interested in being a part of it, thank you guys for hanging out in the chat too. It's always great to see you there. If you're interested in joining, please let myself or Mikey know through Twitter DMs or through Facebook if you're not on Twitter. Or you can my email's in the description box below. You can just send me an email and I can give you a link that way as well. Until then, guys, like I always say at the end of these things, like the late great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.